These are not the real Blackbeard pirates. Blackbeard's crew is going to go through one final evolution before he will become the true endgame threat of One Piece, with the Blackbeard pirates surpassing even the legendary Rocks pirates. Blackbeard is going to be keeping all of his original crewmates, but all of his Impel Down crewmates are set to be replaced with a far, far stronger roster of characters. And Oda has been foreshadowing this drastic change for the entire post-time skip. This is why Oda had the Blackbeard pirates steal Saturn's appearance, so that Blackbeard can take control over the Seraphim once they reach their primes. As we've been told over and over, once the Seraphim become adults and reach their primes, they will be the ultimate beings, near invincible recreations of the Seven Warlords. Once Blackbeard was part of the ranks of the Shichibukai, now their dark clones will serve under him, giving him the most unstoppable crew on the ocean. And if this sounds like too drastic of a change, buckle in, because today we're going to be doing a deep dive, breaking down why the story has been long foreshadowing Blackbeard dumping the Impel Down crewmates, why we are definitely set up for Blackbeard to take control of the Seraphim, and how this change in roster suddenly makes all of the Straw Hats' final matchups against the Blackbeard pirates line up perfectly. But first, this month we just dropped our newly inspired versions of the best-selling One Piece Island posters for your walls. Water 7 at night, the Straw Hats stand at Enies Lobby, Luffy's loss at Alabasta, the destruction of Skypiea, and more. All of these islands have been vividly reimagined, so make sure to check them out. You can get any 2 posters you like from the entire collection and get another 2 free. You can also get a bundle of 15 for a major discount, or even the entire collection bundle for a major discount. And if you complete your collection and you have 1 poster of every island, then we will send you the final exclusive unlockable poster for free, the Moon. So get your posters by hitting the link in the description below. So to begin with, for a long time now, Oda has been drawing a divide between how he portrays the original members of the Blackbeard pirates versus how he portrays the new members that have been picked up from Impel Down. Note, I'm not going to be discussing Aokiji as a Blackbeard pirate member in this video, as the narrative has already made it extremely clear that Aokiji's actual character journey is independent of the Blackbeard pirates, and that Aokiji has his own solo role to play in the story and is not actually trying to make Blackbeard king of the world in the long run. I elaborate on this in greater detail in this video if you want more explanation. That aside, looking at the divide between the original members of the Blackbeard crew and the Impel Down editions, to put it simply, the original members are portrayed with far more depth and nuance, are given far better showings and portrayal, and are clearly shown to have far more loyalty to their captain. See, when we first met the original Blackbeard pirates, they were a unique and eclectic group of striking personalities. A doctor who used his talents to kill rather than to save. A sniper who waxed poetic about fate and the nature of the world. A helmsman who could steal the show as an arrogant champion, and of course the mysterious and inscrutable navigator who seemed to be the key to making all of Blackbeard's plans work. It felt like all of these core members are carefully thought out and fundamentally special characters in their own right. In comparison, the Impel Down editions have so far been written as shallow and forgettable personalities, or even often as bumbling characters who exist to be knocked down a peg. In that same vein, Oda also always seems to make the original Blackbeard pirates seem effective, from Laffy's infiltration into Marijua, or his hypnosis to get through the gates of justice pre-time skip, to Van Augur successfully helping capture Pudding, or infiltrating Egghead, or the entire original group of the Blackbeard pirates successfully taking down the Heart pirates and stealing their poneglyphs, while Laffy executes a mission at Marijua at the same time. Even when Oda had Burgess lose to Sabo, Oda still made Burgess at least seem legitimately impressive beforehand, up until he had to fight the strongest member of the Revolutionary Army one-on-one. And even in defeat, Burgess was still able to show his competence, getting to expose the Revolutionaries' hideout in retaliation, which allowed the Blackbeard pirates to run the Revolutionaries out of their own headquarters. On the other hand, the Impel Down crewmates are regularly embarrassed by Oda, being instantly taken out by Hancock, or being taken out zero difficulty by Aokiji en masse while he's literally drinking beer, or collectively getting their asses beaten by a distracted 80-year-old Garp, while he mainly focuses on Aokiji and saving his subordinates. Oda has very literally never made the Impel Down crew look good. And note, I'm not saying that this means the Impel Down members are weaker than the original Blackbeard pirates. On average, they should probably be stronger. I'm saying that in terms of portrayal, Oda continues to show the original group being successful and competent in their endeavors, with lots of cool, impactful moments, while the Impel Down crewmates are continuously used as punching bags. And the final, most telling point is that the original Blackbeard pirates are fundamentally different from the Impel Down crewmates when it comes to commitment to Blackbeard's cause. See, Blackbeard tells Aokiji that this crew is composed of people who all have their own agendas, and who are all working together out of convenience. But that's not entirely true. That's actually only true for the members who joined from Impel Down onwards. The original group of Blackbeard pirates actually seemingly have a relationship with Blackbeard that is more along the lines of the Straw Hats to Luffy. They joined Blackbeard back before Blackbeard was a great pirate, back when he was a complete nobody. No one had ever heard of him, he had no bounty. There was no reason for these members to follow him other than that they found Blackbeard himself compelling. Similarly, unlike the notorious level 6 inmates of Impel Down, the original Blackbeard pirate members were also generally nobodies themselves prior to joining, meaning that much like Luffy, Blackbeard picked out these misfit toys because they genuinely fit with Blackbeard's own philosophy and ideals, before Blackbeard was great or they were great. And since they all started from the ground up together, there seems to be a genuine cohesion in how Blackbeard thinks and how his original members think. This also plays into the difference in loyalty between the new and old members. As we see with the Impel Down crewmates, they have all joined only out of opportunism and convenience. They were literally all locked up in hell, Blackbeard offered them a way out, and they took it. But it was established that if Blackbeard failed to take the Guruguru no Mi from Whitebeard, then they would have just abandoned him. We also see the Impel Down members talking about taking over the crew, whereas the original members make clear that this is the Blackbeard pirates and that they are going to maintain allegiance to their captain, Blackbeard. This is also likely why the original members are sometimes concerned with the trustworthiness of the new members, and it's the new members who seem to be more focused on finding a way to make a name for themselves and clearly have selfish goals, whereas again, the original group is genuinely bent on making Blackbeard himself the king. And the simple reason for all this, for why the Impel Down crewmates are more generic characters, why they're treated as frequent punching bags, and are generally less loyal to Blackbeard, is that from the start they were only meant to be temporary. Oda knew that by the end of the story, Blackbeard needs to have the strongest crew on the seas to give the Straw Hats a final epic battle. But Oda couldn't give Blackbeard such a powerful crew right off the bat, when Blackbeard was still on the rise. Oda needed a quick and easy group of characters to write in for the middle section of the story, to bridge the gap from the Blackbeard pirates being a small, unknown crew to becoming a Yonko-level crew without rushing the Blackbeard pirates to becoming the strongest crew in the ocean. So to fill in that middle stepping stone, Oda had Blackbeard break out a group of strong criminals from Impel Down. It's essentially a quick-fix, makeshift Yonko crew. A mishmash of random level 6 criminals gives Blackbeard the immediate officers that he would need to position himself as one of the top 4 pirate crews in the New World, but it wouldn't make Blackbeard a final villain level threat right away. That's why it doesn't matter that these characters aren't as uniquely thought out as the original crew, or that they're frequently used as punching bags, or that they're not even that loyal to Blackbeard's agenda, because these were always temporary players. A stepping stone to get Blackbeard further ahead, but not to the final level that he needs to be at. To truly become the New Age Rocks, Blackbeard was always going to need a final roster of subordinates that had far more build-up, far more power, and far more thematic significance than the randoms he picked up from Impel Down. The true ultimate roster of subordinates that Oda crafted for Blackbeard, that Oda has been building to for literally all of post-time skip, are the Seraphim. In the final arc, Blackbeard is going to steal the Seraphim and the Impel Down squad will be tossed to the wayside. This will make Blackbeard's final crew composition the 7 Seraphim, his 4 original members, and likely Katarina Devon as the 1 Impel Down member who will get to stay, which I will explain later. This also creates a perfect lineup of matchups for the Straw Hats and the Blackbeard pirates to play out. To understand why the Seraphim are clearly set up to be Blackbeard's true final crew, we need to break down the extensive build-up leading up to the Seraphim in the story, the narrative role that they've been set up to play, the thematic concept behind Blackbeard's final crew, and finally how this makes for the perfect matchup lineup between the Blackbeard pirates and the Straw Hats, in a way that the current roster definitely does not. To begin with, literally all of post-time skip was spent gradually building up to the Seraphim as the ultimate weapons of war, right behind the ancient weapons. See, across every single post-time skip arc, the story has revolved around the science race in One Piece. Between scientists like Caesar, Judge, Queen, Saturn, and so on, from Punk Hazard through Dressrosa, through Whole Cake, through Wano, literally every single storyline has featured a deep dive into all of these scientists across the New World working on game-breaking experiments, namely gigantification, artificial devil fruits, cloning, bloodline elements, and ancient race experimentation. Just take a step back and look at the insane web of a scientific arms race that Oda has woven across 400 chapters of the post-time skip. And what was the point of it all? Why were each of these lines of experimentation established? All of this was set to culminate in one final, ultimate creation that brings all of these lines of experimentation together. The one unifying creation made by Vegapunk, the genius above all other geniuses, was the Seraphim, the ultimate beings. Considering the insane level of setup by Oda all leading up to the Seraphim, they are guaranteed to be extremely important characters, and there's not really a better suited role for them than the subordinates of the most important villain in the story. Now, a lot of readers underestimate the Seraphim, because Oda deliberately debuted the Seraphim in their child forms, making it clear that they're still nowhere near their full potential. Debuting the ultimate beings as a work in progress was the perfect way to establish their existence without showcasing their full strength yet. But we all know where this type of writing leads to. The adult Seraphim will genuinely be as powerful as advertised. The world's smartest man literally designed them to be the ultimate beings. And even if you want to argue that Vegapunk's not a fighter, so he can't know that for sure, the admirals are also certain that the Seraphim can replace the combat power of the Shichibukai. And the world government in general would never have gotten rid of the Shichibukai and risked losing the balance of power unless they were certain that Vegapunk's creations would be at least as powerful as the Shichibukai. And everything that's been established about the Seraphim makes it clear that at full strength, they will be at least as strong as the original Shichibukai. It is explicitly established that the Seraphim are perfect clones. They don't just have the DNA of the originals, they have the One Piece sci-fi version of DNA, where apparently all the battle experience and combat skills of the originals have also been passed down to the Seraphim through their DNA. That means that once the Seraphim are adults, there will be literally no combat difference between the Seraphim and the originals, especially now that it's been confirmed that the Seraphim can use Haki just like the originals. And while Conqueror's Haki hasn't quite been confirmed for S-Hawk or S-Snake yet, that's because Oda has a consistent track record of never revealing Conqueror's Haki for characters in Vivre cards when he plans to reveal it in battle later on. As the Seraphim have the exact same genes as the original Shichibukai, any Seraphim who is a clone of a Conqueror's Haki user will also be a Conqueror's Haki user themselves. But on top of growing up to have the exact same combat abilities as the original Shichibukai, the point of the Seraphim is that they are meant to go even further beyond. They aren't just perfect clones of the original Shichibukai, they are giant-sized versions of the Shichibukai, as well as having all the Lunarian abilities of near invincibility, fire, and flight. And to top it off, any Shichibukai that didn't originally have a Devil Fruit now gets a Devil Fruit perfectly tailored to them. Simply put, the Seraphim are set to be one of the most absurdly broken groups of characters in One Piece history. Genuinely more powerful versions of the original 7 warlords. And here is where the entire narrative points to the Seraphim having been created by Oda for Blackbeard specifically. The Seraphim's debut is deliberately through the eyes of Blackbeard meeting them and leaving a clear impact on him. Right after seeing the Seraphim in action, Blackbeard sends his crew on a stealth mission to Egghead, presumably with the Seraphim in mind. And the main result of that mission? Likely better than Blackbeard could have even imagined. Katarina Devon stole the Gorosei Saturn's identity. Now this right here is the biggest, most obvious smoking gun imaginable that Blackbeard is going to steal the Seraphim, because being able to transform into Saturn's appearance has literally no other benefit in the story for Blackbeard besides being able to command the Seraphim. Oda made a huge deal in the Egghead arc repeatedly about the Seraphim's chain of command under their authority chip. The Gorosei are the ones that the Seraphim have to obey above all else. That means that if Katarina Devon can turn into Saturn, she can control the Seraphim for Blackbeard. And the key thing here is that Katarina Devon being able to turn into Saturn has literally no other purpose in the story, because the real Saturn was killed by Emu in a very public manner right after Egghead and replaced as a Gorosei. That means that impersonating Saturn no longer has any use for the Blackbeard pirates. It doesn't help Blackbeard trick anyone. It doesn't help him trick the other Gorosei or Emu. It doesn't help him trick the Marines. It has literally no purpose now that Saturn is publicly deceased. There is literally only one thing in the story that Saturn's appearance can still be useful for, and that is controlling the Seraphim. When a key fits only one lock, then that's obviously what it's meant to be used for. And that leads us to how the Seraphim perfectly complete everything Blackbeard's crew needs to be, as Blackbeard's final crew needs to be powerful and thematically coherent with Blackbeard's character. Obviously, in terms of power, the Impel Down crewmates weren't enough. For Blackbeard to have a world-beating crew similar to Rock's, this group is far more fitting. Blackbeard's original competent members and an assembly of the strongest pirates of the Great Pirate Era. And if that sounds familiar, that's because thematically Blackbeard is of course following in the footsteps of Rox. Rox's crew had all the greatest pirates of his era: Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, Shiki, and so on. Everyone except for Roger. And in that same vein, the Shichibukai, and by extension the Seraphim, are literally all the greatest pirates from the following era, the quote-unquote Great Age of Pirates that Blackbeard came up in. And he's bringing them all into his crew just as Rox did. The only one missing from this era is fittingly Shanks, Roger's spiritual successor, making for yet another parallel. On top of that, this also sets up a great symbolic parallel for the Straw Hat Pirates as well, as the Roger Pirates had to go up against an amalgamation of all the strongest pirates of the old era, and the Straw Hat Pirates will have to go up against an amalgamation of all the strongest pirates of the Great Pirate Era. However, Blackbeard's version obviously comes with Blackbeard's own twist on it, of course. Whereas Rox earned his crew through combat, Blackbeard is a more cunning and conniving figure who prefers shortcuts. And so far, Blackbeard's MO has always been stealing power. He stole both of his devil fruits, he stole all of the road poneglyphs he has, he's probably about to go steal the ancient weapons that Caribou is telling him about, and his final move to upgrade his crew is going to be stealing the Seraphim from the world government as well. And along those lines, dumping his Impel Down crewmates for the Seraphim is of course also perfectly thematically fitting for Blackbeard's character and general MO, in that he consistently makes temporary allegiances out of convenience just to use the other party and then discard them when no longer necessary, as he did with the Whitebeard pirates and the world government in the past. As such, the Seraphim perfectly fit Blackbeard's entire character concept to a T. Blackbeard will steal the ultimate crew, and this final crew will be composed of the type of comrades that have always best suited him. Tools that exist exclusively for him to use. The cherry on top is that this even brings Blackbeard full circle to being back alongside the 7 warlords, only this time he has versions of them that will serve him. And this leads us to the final point, which is that with this move, all the Straw Hats matchups finally line up. Now, I've often felt that trying to line up the Straw Hats versus Blackbeard's current crew didn't make for many clear matchups outside of Van Augur versus Usopp and Doc Q versus Chopper. And then some clear matchups just seemed downright underwhelming, like Zoro versus Shiryu. But if you exchange the Impel Down crewmates for the Seraphim, suddenly the matchups fit far better and are infinitely more exciting. To begin with, the weakest Straw Hats, the Weakling Trio, who would never be able to defeat a Seraphim on their own, just so happened to conveniently be the Straw Hats, who seem to naturally match up against the original Blackbeard pirates, aka the remaining weaker human members of Blackbeard's crew. Sniper versus Sniper, Doctor versus Doctor, Navigator versus Navigator. It's almost as if Oda knew from the beginning that the Weakling Trio would never be strong enough to be able to defeat the Seraphim at the end of the story, so he made sure to set up their matchups in advance among the OG core members of the Blackbeard pirates. With the Weakling Trio out of the way, that leaves the Seraphim and Burgess for the rest, which makes sense as Burgess is the only member of Blackbeard's original crew who has been portrayed as a genuinely high-level fighter as we saw in Dressrosa. Not Sabo's level of course, but still arguably commander level. And while the numbers don't seem to quite line up at first, again conveniently, 2 of these Seraphim will naturally be knocked off the list when they line up against the Straw Hats, since we already know S. Snake would never participate in a fight against Luffy because love is still coded in her DNA, and for that very same reason, Kuma's kind heart would likely make it so S. Bear would be swayed away from the battle as well. Especially if Bonnie is still riding alongside the Straw Hats as a cabin girl going forward, as many readers believe. Oda's already set it up so that Bonnie is the key to stopping the Pacifista in the final battle. It's likely that it will be the same for S-Bear. And now the numbers naturally line up, and see how easy it is for the remaining Straw Hats matchups to slot into place, with each matchup actually having personal significance to each Straw Hat member. Zoro vs Prime S-Hawk is very easy and obvious. It's actually terrifying to think how strong a full-power Mihawk Seraphim would be. This would clearly be a top-tier battle. Sanji vs S-Flamingo would be a welcome rematch for Sanji fans after Dressrosa, as a giant-sized Doflamingo with Lunarian powers would certainly be Admiral level and would show how much further Sanji has come. Jinbei fighting an even more powerful version of himself in S-Shark would be a fitting way to force Jinbei to finally have to grow stronger for the first time since joining the crew. Brook fighting S-Gecko of course has Brook's entire history of suffering from the Thriller Bark arc behind it, and this time Brook has his own contrasting abilities to bring to the table, as we would get to see how Moria's shadow powers interact with Brook's fully realized soul powers at the end of the story. Burgess is the only remaining original member of the Blackbeard Pirates, and he has always been the perfect matchup for Frankie, since Burgess has always been the embodiment of an arrogant strongman champion, a macho fighter who claims to be the toughest, and Frankie's fights are typically pissing contests of machismo, be it trying to prove whose punch was the strongest against Fukuro, or continually taking one another's attacks against Senor Pink. Frankie vs Burgess is set to be the ultimate machismo showdown. And finally, Robin. I believe there are actually two possibilities for Robin here. She obviously could get a rematch with Crocodile, but she would need to develop Haki and Elbaf for that to happen, something that isn't out of the question considering that she could have learned it during the time skip but simply chose not to, but I actually think that Robin's true matchup will be against Katarina Devon. Devon would be the one member of the Impel Down group that would actually get to stay, as Blackbeard needs her power to control the Seraphim. And Katarina Devon actually has always made for the perfect matchup for Robin, since being able to continually shapeshift basically is the perfect opposing ability to Robin's, one that isn't necessarily a hard counter to Robin's powers, but one that would require a lot of creativity and stretching the limits of her abilities for Robin to overcome. On top of this, Katarina Devon is the only member of the Impel Down crew who has an actually unique legacy as the most evil woman ever, which makes for a great contrast to Robin, who is notorious worldwide for being the infamous evil devil woman. And finally, as Crocodile's natural opponent may be a surprising one that requires a bit of elaboration that I share in my accompanying podcast. Lastly, I know that last week I promised that this video would cover all the Final War matchups, including all major side characters, but that became too long to include here, so you will have to wait a few weeks for part 2 of this video. But if you enjoyed this video, then definitely like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments below how you think the Straw Hats vs Blackbeard Pirates will go, and if you want to hear who will fight as Crocodile, then you can listen to my weekly podcast that just dropped by becoming a member or by supporting me on Patreon, link in the description below.